Hey guys, welcome in Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside Mike Evans. You can see behind me in Alaska still, and it is pouring down. It's been pouring for 2 straight days. It's been awesome. Poolside. Hey, listen, one thing about my dad, poolside. When you have to mow, I don't care if it's pouring down rain. If Wednesday's your mow day on your birthday, you get out there and you mow the lawn. That's what you do. So, absolutely incredible. It's been fun. We've had a great time, had a great birthday party. The whole family was here yesterday. It was tremendous. We had a great time.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you're enjoying your time, and that looks like some great nap weather in the background right there. Boy, this Brandon Aiyuk story has been fascinating to watch, and there's so many different angles to it. Maybe kind of reset for everybody. What is your stance on Aiyuk? What kind of player is he? Is he well within bounds asking for a top 5 salary when it comes to top receivers, or is he not as good as he thinks he is?
Yeah, well, I think, you can always ask for top 5 salary. You can always want to be the highest paid guy. You can want all those things. But I think, when you look at Brandon Aiyuk realistically, is he a really good receiver? Yeah. Did he do tremendous things last year? Absolutely. There's no question about that. Do I think he's worth top 5 money or top 10 money? No. Do I think he's a top 5 receiver in the league? No. Ultimately, like I did the last 2 San Francisco games last year. So I called those 2 games. And when I sit and talk to defensive coordinators, and I've done a bunch of San Francisco games over the years, I don't ever remember having a conversation about Brandon Aiyuk with any defensive coordinator. Never. He wasn't at the forefront of anybody's mind. And last year I did the last 2 games. So the week 17 was a wash, right? Nobody really played. But week 16 we didn't have that conversation. How are we going to stop Aiyuk? Oh no, it was all about 100% was about, hey, stopping Christian McCaffrey. What are we going to do about Deebo Samuel when he gets into the backfield? How are we going to call that? What do we want to call that defense? How are we going to stop, George Kittle? Like that, the running game, like that was what we talked about. And so ultimately, when you talk about Brandon Aiyuk and you're talking about the San Francisco 49ers, he is the 3rd or 4th option. And so the way it works when you're game planning, when you talk to defensive coordinators, they're like, we can't let this guy beat us. We can't let this guy beat us. And if the other guy beats us, if Brandon Aiyuk is the guy that beats us, then we tip our cap and say, hey, you got us. But we're not going to let Christian McCaffrey or we're not going to let Deebo Samuel beat us. So, ultimately, you can ask for whatever you want. You can believe that you should be paid in the top 5 of receivers. I don't think it's the Niners' fault that the receiver market has just gotten out of hand, in my opinion. I just think it's an overvalued position, and I don't think John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan look at it like, God, we got to pay $30 million a year for a guy that we don't consider, a elite level. I shouldn't say elite level because that's going to get me in trouble. That isn't in the upper echelon, isn't in the top 5 of receivers in the National Football League. How about that? So that's kind of where I stand.
Do you see this? Do you see this working out at all? That there could be some kind of sort of reconciliation between Aiyuk and the 49ers, especially if the 49ers asking price continues to be too prohibitive for teams. They already know they're going to have to pay Aiyuk, and then also whatever they might be giving up. Could you see it get to a point where either the 49ers have to decide, hey, we have to really lower our asking price, or we have to be open to the idea of reconciliation?
Yeah, I could see either or. I could see the Niners going, okay, instead of that, the reports I've been reading, 2 number ones. Well, you're not getting 2 number ones for Brandon Aiyuk. And, maybe that should be a signal to Brandon Aiyuk. Ultimately, one of the things I always say, to young players or players in general, your agent works for you. Don't forget that. Because every agent ultimately wants to set a record, right? Because that helps them create more clients. I love, there was this the article in New York, I think it was the New Yorker, a magazine back in the 80s, that's a big publication, right? And it was the number 1 A-list agent in America from an actor standpoint. And this guy, I can't remember the guy's name, but this guy represented all the big Hollywood celebrities. And so the New Yorker was doing kind of an expose on this guy and how he's built his clientele and, all the things that he's done. And they said, all these years that you've been an agent, who's the most important person you represent? And you know what his answer was? The next one. And ultimately, that's what it is. It's about creating a situation for the agent where he can sit there and say, hey, look at, what I've done here. Look at this piece of paper. I signed Brandon Aiyuk to the biggest contract of any receiver in the NFL. And that helps you gather more clients. And so ultimately for Brandon Aiyuk, you're going to have to sit there and say to yourself, okay, the Niners aren't willing to pay me, number one or number two money in the league. But what they are paying me is plenty to set up my family, my kids' families, and, generational type of money. And it also gives me the opportunity to be part of a great organization that has a history of great wide receivers and to help that organization get back on top and win a championship. And so you have to weigh that. And at some point, you got to tell your agent, if this is how you feel, like, dude, listen, like, this is what I want. And then you gotta figure out what that is. So, some of that is in today's market, the agents want to just have a record. They want to say, hey, look what I negotiated. So you have to understand at some point that guy works for me. It's not the other way around. I don't work for the agent, and you got to put your foot down.
Stink, I'm impressed. You were reading the New Yorker. I would have thought you just kind of, Mad Magazine or something like that.
I didn't.
Or Playboy, strictly for the articles.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing you can get from the New Yorker that you can't get twice as fast on TV, and I believe that. I really do. So, I didn't read anything.
One of the other offshoots of this story is, man, how the mighty has fallen with New England. So here the Patriots are desperate for Aiyuk. They're willing to make him maybe the second highest paid receiver in all of the NFL behind Justin Jefferson. They want to pay him, and he doesn't want to go there. And I saw your buddy at ESPN, Mike Reese, was talking about how the Patriots are in a position now where they got to pay the suck tax, where you've gotten so bad that if you want to try to get players to come to your team, you have to pay egregiously above what everybody else would pay because you suck so bad. Hence the suck tax. And even with them maybe being willing to pay the suck tax, he still didn't want to go there. The mighty have fallen.
Right. Well, I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You want to be the highest paid receiver. You want a chance to win. That's where. I mean, that's where this really falls. That's the category this falls into. You can't have both, right? You can either be one of the highest paid, one of the top 3 paid guys, but you're going to have to go to a place that's going to stink for a long time.
Right.
Or guess what? You can suck it up, take a little bit less, right? And you got a chance. You got a chance the way that the Niners are constructed with, let's face it, ownership, empowering a GM and a head coach that are in lockstep in what they're doing, right? And that's an organization that's not afraid to say, hey, we screwed up and drafted Trey Lance and he didn't work out, so we're going to move on. Like there's power in organizational structure. And if you don't have the proper organizational structure, guess what? You'll suck. And so you got to understand that you're in a position right now in San Francisco that is pretty damn good from an organizational structure standpoint. And then you've got a coach that is as smart as anybody in the league. So he's going to give you a chance through game planning to be effective and to win. And so you've got that. And then you've got arguably, like if you put to every analyst in America, right, everybody who follows football, and say, hey, give me the best rosters in all the National Football League, San Francisco can come in the top 3 of all rosters. So you've got this incredible roster with a great organizational structure, with one of the smartest head coaches in football. Like, you got to understand that there's value in that. And for you as a player, that might be worth taking a little bit less money because you have all those other things set up. So those are the things I think as a player you have to think about as you're evaluating what your value is, where you want to play. Like, I mean, hey, I want to be the highest paid dude or one of the highest paid dudes, but I don't want to go over there because they suck and we're never going to win. Well, understand that you got maybe the best place in football, at least in the NFC, to win. And in the NFC, let's face it, all the great young gun quarterbacks really are in the AFC, other than Purdy, who is, a seventh round Mr. Irrelevant. So, like, you got to be able to weigh that stuff if you're Brandon Aiyuk.
The Aiyuk story has dominated the NFL news cycle this week, but I got to get your interpretation because we like to play this game. What did he say and what does he mean? And so read between the lines on this one. Josh Allen, when asked if he'll miss Stefon Diggs, who had a great connection for many years in Buffalo, said, quote, miss? I don't know if I'd say miss. He was a guy that was reliable. You can look to. He's going to have the juice every day. I'm sure he's bringing it every day in Houston. You can't say you don't miss that, but I'm very happy with what we have going on here. What did he say? You heard what he said. Now, what does he mean?
Yeah, he means, man, that dude is one talented pain in the ass. like that is a talented pain in the ass, but he is ultimately a pain in the ass. And what's the old saying? We'll put up with you until we can replace you, or when the problems seem to outweigh the production. And I'm not saying that he's not going to have great production, but at some point he was a top flight receiver in Minnesota and they were tired of his bullshit. And at some point he's still a top flight receiver in Buffalo and they're tired of his bullshit. And so, that's how I interpret that. And listen, now I'll get a bunch of people that will, dog cuss me and say that, what do I know? Well, I'm more than you. That's what I know. And, the guy's a pain in the ass. Ultimately, he's just a pain in the ass. And now he's a talented pain in the ass. But there comes a time when you just get tired of that. And I have said for Buffalo, I think it's addition by subtraction. I think that the Buffalo Bills, a couple different things. I think, one, you don't have to deal with a guy that is temperamental, that's moody, that's mercurial, that's got some issues, at least reportedly has some issues. And so you don't have to deal with that anymore. You don't have to placate or babysit or, whatever. Put your term on there, whatever you want to say. And so you don't have to put up with that. The other thing I think is oftentimes Buffalo and their coaching staff get too wound up in, hey, Josh, go out and win this for us. Or, hey, we got to get X number of targets to this guy. Otherwise, he's going to be a problem next week and he's going to pout or whatever. And again, I'm not inside Buffalo. So, I'm speculating to some degree, but it's a very educated speculation based on some things I know and some things, mostly from Minnesota that I know to be factual. So I think I'm being pretty fair in my assessment of the situation there. The other thing I think that oftentimes happens, and I look at this, I go back to that divisional round playoff game between Buffalo and Kansas City, where Buffalo's whipping that ass and they're running the football and they're dominating the line of scrimmage and they're doing all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, it comes nut cutting time. They get a little uptight and then it's completely get away from what we've been doing the entirety of the game and just throw it to Josh Allen and say, hey, Josh, go be the guy. And sometimes when you have that much talent, it's easy to get away from coaching your team and just say, hey, talent, take over. And so I think ultimately this is a good thing because I think you have to rely on your ability to game plan, your ability to coach, and your ability to trust and rely on other players not named Stefon Diggs and not named Josh Allen. And I think that's ultimately a really good thing for Buffalo.
Well, we're going to have a lot to react to next week with this weekend being the first wave of preseason games. So look forward to that. Yeah. But before I let you go, I have to comment on that historical relic that is right behind you. Is that a landline phone? Is that an actual landline phone?
That right there.
That thing is an heirloom.
Yeah, it's funny because my dad's got like the volume. I didn't even know you could turn the volume up on these things. Like it shakes the whole house when it goes off, and so it's ringing the other day. I mean, it's going to town. Like it shakes the house, reverberates the whole thing. And I mean, he looks at me and goes, "Yeah, I don't ever answer that phone." I'm like, "What? Why do we have this? Why is this a thing?"
I have to say, it's amazing how much things. It's amazing how things have changed. That I'm looking over your shoulder. I happen to notice that. I'm like, "Huh? You never see those anymore." Only in Alaska.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Right. Exactly. So it is. It's right there. I didn't even notice it. So, yeah. But preseason's going to be. Yeah, it'll be fun to kind of monitor preseason, see exactly how it goes, Mike, and then. See all the thing that's great about preseason is to watch all the players who aren't going to make your team play, because that's the way preseason's gone. Ultimately, it's all about these joint practices that they don't even play. Yeah, ever since it really started. This is years ago when Sean McVay took over in his first season as the Rams coach and decided not to play not one starter in the preseason. I remember at the time, I think I was on ESPN at the time. I think it was my last year at ESPN. And I was like, "Oh, this is never going to work." Like, what are you doing? Right. And maybe they went to the Super Bowl that year or whatever and lost. I was like, no, maybe it was the second year. It was my first year at Fox, I think. But anyhow, I was just like, that's not, you can't do that. But, that's the way it is. So really, they put so much more weight on the joint practices that happen in camp, and every team now does those.
Well, it turns out that your take on that was as outdated as that phone over your shoulder. So,
there's no question about it. All right, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, for Mike, I am Mark. I look forward to seeing you. I'm heading back to Denver here in a couple of days, Mike. So we will be reunited, and like peaches and herb, it's going to feel so good. So anyhow, for everybody, thank you guys so much for listening. Please click that subscribe button. We appreciate you, and we'll be back with you guys next week.
Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth, we thank you so much. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. If you want to see more of our videos, you can also be sure to check out our playlist. Let us know exactly what you think in the comments below. We appreciate you guys so much for being a part of that.
Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.